We're looking this week at millennials, and what we found is that A, they're not from outer space, and B, that they have the same hopes and fears and expectations as everybody else. So is it really patronising to single them out for such attention? Well, it's true to say that many companies have specific policies to market to and to employ millennials and digital natives. So let's look at the recruitment industry this morning, and I'm pleased to welcome to the studio Suha Haroun, Regional Director at recruitment company Bayt.com. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Firstly, Suha, talk about your definition, because there are so many definitions, age bands, subsets. When we talk about millennials, what do you refer to?
So generally, anybody who's born around 1990, I would say, would be considered a millennial. In fact, this year, the first millennial turned 30, so that's a 1987 birth year. But
the definition I've got, and most of them seem to include up to 1980, which makes them 37, which is quite old, really, for what you might think of as being the sort of digital native type generation.
Yeah, definitely the definitions do change, I would say, from maybe from continent to continent. But I think in general, most companies agree that, if you're born in the early 90s and up till about 2001, you're considered within the millennial group of people.
Well, let me ask you first of all, do you actually agree with my assertion that really millennials, despite the fact that they've got different skill sets, are actually no different to the rest of us?
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah. Definitely. I'll tell. I think there's a reason why this has kind of, surged primarily. In Europe, and of course North America, it's common knowledge. There is definitely, a problem with the way that the population is distributed. So there's an aging population, and that's creating problems in terms of replacing that aging population for the future workforce. So there just aren't enough young people that are able and ready to come into the workforce. They're just the supply of the youth in those countries is much lower. In fact, I think right now less than 20% of the European population is below the age of 25, and that's a problem. There's just not enough of them to surpass that.
I looked at your website last night, and I thought maybe you'd have a special millennial section or something. But your website's homepage lists the number of jobs available in each employment category. Superficially, it looked like a pretty traditional list. Engineering, HR, hospitality, sales, teaching, market, finance, admin. So it looks like they have the same career needs. But are they actually easier or harder to find positions for?
So the challenge, there's plenty of challenges that a millennial here in the GCC has that's quite different to a millennial, somewhere else in the world. First of all, in terms of supply of young people, there's plenty of young people out there. And in fact, we have one of the highest unemployment rates in the entire world. So our youth unemployment rate...
When you say we mean here in the UAE?
Specifically, I mean MENA, Middle East and North Africa. Our unemployment rates just for youth, and that's for employable people aged between 18 and 30, is about 31%.
I guess that doesn't really sort of take into account the participation rate, which is those actually looking for work.
No, everybody is looking for work. Do
you really believe that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll prove it to you. In Europe, let's say we take Switzerland, a country that's comparable in size to the UAE, similar in terms of population and the number of companies. On average, a job application in Europe for a mid-career position will receive about 2 applications for every job posting out there, for every vacancy.
In Switzerland?
Yeah. Here in the UAE, we get about 1,000 for every job applicant, for every job vacancy. So there's there's huge competition that's out there across every single career level, whether it's entry or all the way up to a senior position. And so that means that first of all, people are very active looking for jobs. Dubai is definitely one of the places in the world that people feel can provide them with a good life. There's a lot of appeal here. It's, healthy growth in terms of an economy. And so when it comes to hiring millennials, the people who are looking for a job, the youth that are looking for a job, are in the same competition bucket as everybody else. So yeah, it's definitely an active part of their post-graduation activity set. Yeah.
Is finding the right millennial, though, is hiring the right person in this younger generation any different from hiring the right person, making sure that you've got the right fit with Generation X, baby boomers, any of the others?
I think that's a great question. For sure, finding people overall is a big challenge for all organizations. I think there's definitely 5 things that millennials are on the lookout for, and they kind of top their list when it comes to working with any organization. The first one would be that they're able to build a rapport with that company well before any job is available for them. So that's important, and that kind of goes back to something that distinguishes a millennial from other generations. And that is that, the reputation and culture of any organization is critical. They have absolutely no tolerance for any company that can misuse that trust, and so for them, it'll come across with something as simple as, I applied to a job, but I didn't hear back. Nobody got back to me. That's where the rapport starts. And companies who are looking to hire millennials, because, we'll talk about all their good qualities in a second, will lose out on building that rapport from the beginning.
Yeah, but are you saying people, they have no patience or no tolerance for sort of the relationship right from the start? It makes me wonder, really, if they're not tolerant of that, how well do they play with other people? How well do they fit into the workforce? If there's something that they don't agree with, do they go off the rails?
Yeah, no. I think it's a great point you bring up. I think there's 3 different factors that are very important for any person working in an organization. You build trust with the company itself. You build trust with the person who you report to, and then you obviously build trust with the people in the workforce itself. And so the critical point here is, you've got to build that trust with the organization. So the reputation and culture of that organization would trump out everything else.
Do we need to be treating them, though, as a separate species? We're talking about a generation here, and all of us in the studio are a generation. We can talk about baby boomers as a completely different species. I'm a Zennial. Technically, I'm the shoulder generation. Danny Norton and Sarah are both just millennials who are sitting here in the studio. One of the guests that we had in yesterday, Abdul Wahid from Do, said, look, we can't talk about them as though they're aliens. They're just another generation. Do we need all of this special treatment?
Yeah, I think he's right. When you think about, why are we treating them differently? Again, if we're emulating what's happening in other parts of the world, there's definitely a larger war for talent for young people in Europe than there is here. There doesn't need to be one here. There's plenty of young people, and it's actually our duty to make sure that we're, employing them and putting them into organizations. In terms of what they want, they kind of want the same as everybody else wants. They want a good salary. That's very important. They want, training opportunities, career development. Those are things that across the board, everybody pretty much is looking for.
We've had a text in from Mohammed who says, I'm born in 1987. As a millennial, I find baby boomers are the problem. They're the problem creators for us. The reason we face more challenges in today's automated world, baby boomers take a huge paycheck using millennial skills. And, it's a bit of a red rag to a baby boomer like myself, something like that. And I'm wondering whether they need something for nothing millennials, because according to a Bayt.com survey a little while ago, it's not bang up to date, this survey, I have to be honest with you, but millennials in the Middle East, it says here, the Millennials in the Middle East North Africa survey, that's what it is. It says, although millennials currently work in the private sector more than the public sector, more of the younger group said they want to work in the public or government sector, which wasn't what I was expecting to hear, really. I get the impression from the survey they want shorter working hours and higher salaries and to work for the government. Laudable aims. Obviously, we all want higher salaries and shorter working hours, but I'm very surprised that a relatively young group, new to their working lives, would actually want to work for the government.
Oh, but there's a very good reason for that. We've just come out of Arab Spring. Arab Spring is, excuse me, Arab Spring is what, not even 10 years old.
7 years old.
7 years
Yeah.
old. And, what the public and what the governments offer is job security. That's definitely something that a lot of organizations certainly,
On the one hand, we hear that millennials don't want to own cars, they don't want to own houses, they're a completely brand new, we'll do it our way sort of thing. And then here they want long-term jobs in government.
Yeah, they
so.
also want money. Right.
Yeah.
That's very important. That's the whole point of having a job and being part
In
of
other
it.
words,
So
they are no different to any other generation.
No.
They want a cushy job,
No.
safe job with lots of money.
but they clearly come into the workforce,
Yeah.
with advanced tech skills for sure. So they're much more tech savvy than a generation or than a baby boomer for sure. I'll give you an example. I had a high school young lad intern with me a couple of weeks ago, and I put him down, to kind of give him just something to try, just test it out because I don't know what he can do. And in half an hour he had fixed some sheets for me in Excel. In another half an hour he had gone online and he had captured all sorts of information that I had asked him to do. Something that I know for a fact when I give it to, let's say older team members, it takes them a day or so to get done.
So it helps you to connect with the modern world, in other words.
Yeah, I mean, it's just great to be able to see that, technology is being, it starts at the school level and then is able to move forward into the workforce. So, yeah, for sure.
I'm not sure we've really actually summarised exactly how difficult it is to employ millennials and digital natives, but it's an interesting conversation. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning, Suha Haroun,
Yeah, my
Regional
pleasure.
Director.